If you're filming a lesson, a video, or even something for Instagram, just using your phone, here's how to get a better image quality from the camera to make it look fancier and nicer just before you go ahead and buy lots of very expensive camera gear like I have. As a heads up, we are going to get a little bit nerdy, but I'm going to be trying to keep it as simple as possible so then you can use these skills as quickly as possible. If you want to see how I make these videos exactly, so which camera and lens I'm using right now, the microphone I'm using, the light, then you can check out the link in the description where I've uploaded a video to the Patreon page. So let's get straight to it. The app you'll need to make everything look significantly better is the Blackmagic camera app on the App Store. Looks like this, Blackmagic camera. I've already downloaded it, so it says open for me, but for you it'll say download. Last time I checked, it was completely free, so that's even better. But go ahead and download this app. Once you've downloaded it, open it up and you'll get this monstrosity of a screen. So this can be quite daunting as a screen because suddenly there's a lot of settings on the screen, there's lots of things to do, there's lots of buttons that don't make sense. So let's make sense of 3 of them that are very important. And if you're like me and you shoot in the same place, in the same room with the same lighting, then you can just follow the steps in this video to set your settings and then you can just leave them be and just record every single time. So whether you're into photography or videography or not, there's a triangle that you'll need to know about. Yeah. A triangle. It's the triangle of ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. And you'll find all of these on this app. So ISO is essentially fake brightness from the camera. So if you're in a dark place, you can turn up the ISO and it'll make it brighter, like turning up the brightness on your phone screen. It just gets brighter. Now the problem with this is that because it's generated by the camera, it means that the brighter you set it, the more noise and like bits on the screen will appear. So as a general rule of thumb, we want to keep the ISO as low as possible. Now it does get a lot nerdier than that, but I'm just trying to give you the thing that you can start. So just try and set that ISO as low as possible. So using the Blackmagic app, it's currently just pointed at the desk, as you can see from the keyboard, but you're going to find that up here. For me, it says 32 right now. For you, it might say something different and it might change as you move the camera around. But what I do is I tap the 100 on the right, as you can see on the big list, and the screen has gotten a little bit brighter. If I tap 200, 800, 1600, as you can see, it gets, well, brighter. So I'm gonna tap on 100 and then scroll that all the way down to 34. And as you can see already, looking at the keyboard, it's quite an even picture, which is quite nice. So once you've set that, that'll then, hopefully anyway, just sit there, job done. That's ISO. Up next on our triangle of joy, we've got aperture. And this is the secret to all wonderfully good cinematic looking things. Now, basically, the lower the number for aperture, the blurrier the background. So when you see films and things like that, with nice blurry backgrounds and you're like, oh, that looks really nice. That's because the aperture is set quite low, usually. So right now on this camera, I'm shooting at an aperture of 2 and this lens goes down to 1.8, which basically means, as you can see in the background, it's slightly blurry. I'm a little bit more sharper and in focus, and that's what it does. Now on the iPhone, if we look at the app, it says just next to all of the zeros, which is how long you've been filming for, it says iris f1.5, and that's your aperture. Now, right now it's grayed out for me, which means I can't change it, and that's because it's set in stone on this specific lens. The iPhone, as you can see on the back, it has 3 lenses, which is a close-up one, a normal one, and then a super wide one, and right now I'm on the normal one, and that's set to 1.5, which is great, because like I said, right now, I'm filming on 2, so this actually goes lower than what I'm filming on right now, which should mean that our background should be nice and blurry. As a heads up as well, if you're filming in a relatively dark room, the lower the number means the more light can come into the camera. So as you'll see when you adjust it, in a different camera, your screen will get generally brighter. So now you can start to see how this triangle works, because ISO, we've turned the camera brightness all the way down. The aperture, we've also turned that all the way down, which means the most light can come into the camera, and therefore we don't have a noisy picture with all this fake brightness going on. We've got a nice blurry background, and it's starting to look hopefully pretty good. Now the last one on our triangle is shutter speed. And when you take a photo, you'll hear the camera click, or on a phone, you'll see the camera flash. And this is essentially, in cameras, there's a literal shutter that goes in front of it and opens again. When you're filming a video, that's happening over and over and over again to create a video. That's where the word frames per second comes from, because it's taking loads of photos at the same time to create a video. So shutter speed for us, super easy. We just essentially, as a rule of thumb, want to double the shutter speed per frames per second. Bear with me, let me make sense of this, because that's a lot of information. So looking at the app, if we go to the top left of the screen, we can see lens is 26mm, which is the normal lens. Then we've got FPS 24, and that's the key piece of information. So next to it, we've got shutter, and right now it's set to 150. We just need to pay attention to the 50 because that's the number that's going to change. If I just tap the lock on mine, yours is probably already unlocked, then you can change it by scrolling up and down. And as you can see, the brightness gets brighter, and darker. Yours might be slightly lower than mine in the sense of it might be like 125, 130, but that's fine because we can just scroll up until we hit 150. Because if we look at the FPS, it says 24, we double that, it's 48. The closest thing to 48 is 50, and that's now going to be our shutter. So we can just hit the lock and we can literally just forget about that now. That shutter speed set, job done. As another example, if you're shooting in 60 frames per second, then your shutter speed, double 60, 120. So then you're going to scroll all the way up until it says 1/120, or the closest option to it. So with that whole triangle out of the way, that's what's going to now allow us to have a slightly nicer image. The final step, the final thing, the final investment, if you will, into this is lighting. Now, as you can see, I'm lit in this video. There's a little bit of a shadow on the side of my face, and that's because I've got a light right next to me. So what I'd recommend is getting one of these, which is the newer NEEWER 660, and it's basically, you open the flappy panels, a big fancy light like this. It's relatively cheap. You can get them on Amazon, and that's what I got them from. I got two, which is even better, and it basically gives you a nice, soft light to start with that you can control, and that's the main thing, because without a nice looking room, whatever you're gonna film isn't gonna look that nice. So I'd recommend one of these, and as well, you can get what's called a soft box for that. And that essentially means that the light coming out of it becomes even softer and just looks really visually appealing and nice, and that's what we aim for, is a nice soft light. I'll put a link to these very same lights in the link down below just so you can click on it and order it straight away if you want to. Now the final thing to make them look good is to set it pretty much to your left or to your right. So as you can see, to my right is my desk. That's where you can see the computer is and all that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna set the light to my left. Now, as you can see, I'm pretty evenly lit, but as a general rule of thumb, you wanna, rather than have the light directly on you, literally just place it to one side of you and you'll get this really nice like depth effect where one side of your face is kind of shadowy, the other side is nice and light, and that'll give you a really nice look on camera. Now with this, you want to make sure it's just you lit up, so this light is kind of aiming at me this way, and because it's not kind of really lighting up anything behind me, I've got a candle and a light behind me there to make it look fancy, but you don't need to worry about any of that. All you need to worry about is just placing the light to your left or to your right like this and let it shine on you, basically. That's it. So now all of that set up, as you can see, this is what this looks like in my room anyway. I can set these settings up and it kind of looks a little bit better than if I just set this up and pressed record on the app. It gives us a little bit more control. So I'd always recommend just playing around with this new triangle that we now love and seeing what happens with it. Once you've filmed everything, then if you're using the Apple ecosystem, so you're using a Mac like I am, then you can just airdrop the footage straight to your Mac and edit it using whichever editor you like. If you're on Windows, they do actually have an airdrop equivalent. You might just need to do a quick Google on airdrop for Windows and it should turn up. But I've heard some really good things about it and it makes it a little bit more accessible for the Windows users in the room. If you'd like to see the setup that I use to make this very video, so the microphone that I'm using, the lens, the camera, the light, all that good stuff, I've posted a video in the Patreon page, which is the link you can find just down below. If you make one of these videos with this phone, please tag me in it, post it in the Patreon page. I want to see these videos, that'd be amazing. And I hope you have some fun with our new triangle.